This is Tim, and this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo. This week we look into a documentary film currently in production about African-American comics creators. You'll hear me talking with Craig Rippon, executive producer of the film Black Ink, discussing some of the creators he's interviewed so far, the plan for finishing the film, including a Kickstarter project, the state of black superheroes in Marvel Comics and how we got here, and more. First, a reminder that you can help this podcast by making your Amazon purchases via deconstructingcomics.com/Amazon and make that your bookmark for future purchases. We'll then get a percentage of what you spend. It costs you nothing extra and helps us cover web hosting and the other costs of presenting this show every week. Okay, I'm talking to Craig Rippon, who is in Albany, New York. How are you doing?
I'm fine, digging out from underneath all of this snow, but I'm doing good.
Okay.
Can I say something before you go on?
Sure.
I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to be on your show and to get an opportunity, give me a chance to talk about what I'm doing. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no problem. So, Craig sent me a little email when he was publicizing his work, which is film. You're the executive producer?
Yes.
The film is called Black Ink, and tell us what Black Ink is about.
Well, Black Ink is a documentary that examines the contributions that Black people have made in the comic industry, and that in the comic industry, and the contributions that they have made and are still making. So we've got quite a lot of people that we are interviewing. I'm almost halfway done with it. We're a family-owned business, so it's me, my two daughters, my son, and one of my son's friends who helps my son with the camera work and the sound. And we all pull it together. We pay for everything out of pocket so far. But going forward, we're going to be putting up a Kickstarter campaign because we're going to try and raise some money to get in the air and get on some planes and travel to places that we just can't drive to. So that's what we are doing. And so far, we're really happy about it. And it's going well.
I see. So what gave you the thought to make this film?
Well, I'm a comic artist myself. And when you're doing comic art, you're up late at night a lot of times. It's a lonely thing. I don't know. You meet a lot of people who think of comic art as something really exciting, and I think the thing that's exciting about it is once it's done, it's out the door, and you're getting the reactions. That's great, but the actual making of the comic can be a very lonely, boring thing. So what I wound up doing is, like a lot of people, you put on music, or you're watching some interview while you're drawing, you got it going on in the background. And I would often look on YouTube for artists, writers, people who are doing the same sorts of things that I'm doing, and to get inspired by them. And after a while, I realized that when you cover the usual suspects, and by that I mean the black guys or black women who are doing this sort of thing, it's nothing. It's just a wasteland after a certain point. So I decided that I would try and jump in and fill that void. So that's really the start of the idea. That's where it came from.
Okay. And so let's see. So how many interviews have you done so far?
We've done about 12 interviews so far. We've interviewed Sean Martinsborough, Tim Fielder, what's the fellow's name? The man who does the book Black Kwanzaa. I can't pronounce his last name right now. We've interviewed Barbara Brandon Croft. We've interviewed Jamal Igle. He does the book Molly Danger. So we've got quite a few people that we've already interviewed, and we've got quite a few people that are coming up. So I'm really looking forward to getting this thing finished. We have gotten quite a bit of help so far. I got to say, I'm very happy with the support that we've gotten. I'm really, actually, I'm really kind of surprised at the amount of attention that we've gotten so far. Because when I first started this, I was saying, okay, this is something that people will be interested in, and I hope to make some money off of it. But then we threw out the trailer on YouTube, and we still haven't put up the Kickstarter yet, but we threw out the trailer, and we're up to going into the 1,000 views. We got quite a few people who are interested, and I had some people contact me to talk with me about it. So I'm actually kind of surprised, but I'm pleasantly surprised. Let me make sure I say that. So that's what's going on.
Yeah, I saw the trailer, and the trailer looks great. And it's well done, and the interviews sound interesting. So yeah, I'm interested in seeing the whole thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I saw there were two people in there who I recognized or knew about. One, of course, is Chris Cross, who and you show some of his Captain Marvel art from the Genis Vell days, yes. Which is one of my favorites. And then you had Whit Taylor in there, who I met at MoCA last year.
Really? Yeah. They're great people. I mean, Chris Cross was really a fantastic guy. We actually interviewed him twice because we went out to his house. He was actually the first interview we did. We went out to his house, did the interview, and realized after we got back that we had a sound problem that we didn't detect when we were there. So we had to drive all the way back out to New Jersey, set up everything. But he's an awesome guy. He really is a great guy. Whit Taylor's fantastic too. She's just a real sweetheart, very nice young lady. So far, I can't say we've met anybody who's been annoying or they've all been very gracious to us. So I'm very, very happy about that. So we've had a good time. Just tiring, I've literally been up for 24 hours. I have not slept because I had to go to Boston last night to do some filming for the Kickstarter. So I worked all day yesterday, got in the car, drove to Boston, finished filming at 2:30, maybe 3 in the morning, drove back here, had to get up and go to work. Had to go to work, and I have not seen my bed yet, so I wanted to do this interview. When this is done, I will be retiring.
Unconscious in T-minus 1 hour. Okay. So the thing about comics is that there's usually not anything recognizable about them that's you can identify anything about the person who did it, what color they are, what gender, or anything. So, in fact, I didn't even know that Chris Cross was black until I saw your trailer. It's like, really? I knew nothing about him except that he did art for Captain Marvel.
Yeah. Well, I used to years ago. I don't know if you remember. I used to work at Milestone Media years ago. Milestone Media was like DC's. A part of DC's company that was targeting a multicultural audience. I mean, to be respectful to the way they wanted to advertise themselves. They were headed by Dennis Cowan and a few guys who used to work at DC and started their own company, and it was connected to the parent company, DC. And I worked there as a colorist for a very short period of time. And I used to see Chris Cross all the time, coming in and out. Quite a few people I used to see. But as a colorist, you're kind of like a lower tier person. So you're looking at them in the stars in the distance. And that was my exposure, and was so now I'm getting an opportunity to, I guess, meet some of these people again, actually in person, to actually sit down and talk with them. So it's really a good experience. So I'm really happy with the way things are going. But you don't really know sometimes who's black and who's white, except depending upon the story. I can usually tell if I'm watching a movie and the movie has a black character in it. I can usually tell if the character was written by, let's say, a white person, or if the character was written by a black person. For example, when I saw the movie The Green Mile, I didn't have any idea that the Green Mile was a Stephen King uh, story. So I'm sitting in the Green Mile, and did you see the movie, by the way?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, there's a scene in the Green Mile. There's this big black guy played by Michael Clark Duncan, and he has the ability to heal. And you don't find that out until later on in the movie. So they come upon Michael Clark Duncan in one scene in the movie, and he's got these two cute little blonde girls in his arms, and they're both dead. This is way back in the time when they hang a black person quickly for even looking at a white woman. This is, talking way back in like in the 50s or whatever it was. And the next scene, you see they take Michael Clark Duncan to jail. And when I saw that scene, I immediately knew. I said, the white guy wrote this movie. And my friend said, well, how do you know? I said, because in that time period, they would have hung him, burned him, chopped him up in pieces, and took pictures of it. They wouldn't have bothered with the jail. So the miracle is not that he can heal people. The miracle is the fact that they let him live long enough to get to the jail. So when I saw something like that, I saw this was written by a white person. And at the time, I didn't even know it was Stephen King. So a lot of times you see these characters that are written like, let's say, Luke Cage way back when he was first created.
Sweet Christmas.
Yeah, Sweet Christmas. Yeah, you had Luke Cage saying things and doing things, and I said, yeah, white guys writing this. Now, when you can tell, like when you read something by David Walker, for instance, you can tell that the character is handled by a black person because the humanity of the character is recognized in a way, in a way that, let's say, a white person might not recognize it because either they're afraid to tackle certain things or say certain things. So you can pretty much get a good idea of who's writing what. So that's been my experience. I'm rambling. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, the interviews you've done so far. What's one of all the things that the people have said in the interviews? Is there any particular one thing that kind of sticks in your mind, like something that somebody said that you thought was a really good insight or something you hadn't thought of?
Well, I don't know if Sean Martinsborough said quite a few things. Sean Martinsborough is the illustrator for the book Thief of Thieves. He works with Robert Kirkman these days, and he's been doing a great job on that book. Sean Martinsborough talked a lot about professionalism, paying your dues, going to school, knowing your craft, and being good at your craft. It's not just about, I can draw a picture, and I sit in my basement and I draw comic books all the time, and I'm just as good as this person or just as good as that person. I can do all of the jobs that these guys do. I mean, Sean Martinsborough focused very heavily on professionalism and quality and making sure that you had those two things down pat. That stood out in my mind. And quite a few other people focused on the same thing. That's very important. I mean, it's easy to think you can jump in and do something, and I'm not saying you can't. Maybe there's some guys out here just awesome, but that stood out in my mind. A lot of times people, they don't highlight, they don't focus on the level of professionalism and talent and discipline that it takes to get the job done and get it done right. It's easy to think that your work or your book is being turned down if you're an independent artist, let's say, or a writer, that your work is being turned down because you're black. And I think that there's some merit to some of that too. But I think a lot of it also has to do with, let's face it, is the book good?
Yeah.
Is the quality up to snuff? I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for that. And that I got a lot out of that interview.
Yeah. I don't remember who said it, but someone in the trailer was talking about how creators from maybe any minority group are kind of expected to do work about issues in their community, but straight white men aren't.
Well, here's the thing. White is the default position. What do I mean by that? White is the position that, I'll give you an example of something. You watch, I remember when I was younger and I used to watch Star Trek, right? And then I think it was Star Trek Voyager. where you had the Black Vulcan. Do you remember that show? Did you see that?
That was after I came to Japan. I haven't seen very much of that,
Okay.
unfortunately. It looked really good when I saw it, but
Okay. Well, in Star Trek Voyager, they had a Vulcan and he was black. And I had a knee-jerk reaction. I was like, Vulcans can't be black. And I was talking to a friend of mine about it, and he said, why not? And we got in this whole big debate about it. And I started thinking, and I said, well, wait a minute, why can't a Vulcan be black?
humans are black and white, and
It didn't occur to me that my mind I'd been so racialized to think of, you go in a science fiction story, you go to any planet, you go anywhere in the galaxy in a science fiction story, you encounter a white person, and it never occurs to you, why are there white people here? But you encounter a black person, and it's like, whoa, hold on here, what's going on? Something strange. And that's largely because we're socialized to think of white as the default position. So that has a lot to do with how we view things. I remember years ago when the Bill Cosby show came out, allegations of rape aside, when Bill Cosby came out with the show where he's a doctor, his wife's a lawyer, he's got all these children, and they live in a brownstone, they're all doing very well. I remember my first thought was, well, that's insane. And then I started asking myself, why is that insane? There are families like that. My family was not like that, however, but there are families like that. So, I think these notions need to be challenged. I think it's important for Black people to tell the story, tell their own stories, and show the humanity of their characters. Not write their characters as stereotypes. That's important because it normalizes what a lot of people are afraid to admit they don't view as normal. So that's my feelings. Those are my feelings on that.
I see. Did you get a sense that there was? There are different. Discrimination takes different forms. But did any of the creators talk about any discrimination they'd experienced in any way?
Yes and no. I'll tell you, there was like one of the questions we had was, can you tell us some story about the old days? And we particularly, I was interested in asking some of the older fellows, and I spoke with Tim Fielder, and Tim Fielder was like, Nope, I don't have any good stories about the old days. Don't want to talk about the old days. This is our time. This is our time now. So there were other people who they talked about, Chris Cross talked a little bit about some of the problems that he noticed when he was at Milestone Media. There was a character, Static Shock, and they did this cover with Static where he was, teenage boy, he's on the couch with this young girl, and he's kissing this young girl. And, they got called aside and were made to kind of put a cover on their cover. They had to put a cover over their cover with a heart cut out because the sexuality, the perceived sexuality of the scene made some people uncomfortable. The same sexuality displayed by a white couple wouldn't have made anyone uncomfortable. So they talked about that, and I actually got the impression that that was kind of like the beginning of the end for them, because I think certain individuals in DC got a little pissed off with the tension that developed around that issue. There were some people who talked about that. I think that there are, in all honesty, I think that largely whites are still adjusting, and I realize I've got a big flat generalization brush I'm painting with here, but a lot of white people are still adjusting to the humanity of Black people. You see a Batman hanging out with the Justice League, and he's doing all sorts of crazy things. Superman's basically a god. Wonder Woman's a goddess, and Batman's holding his own with these characters, and no one blinks. But you see Black Panther doing something like that. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That can't happen. Well, why can't that happen? Well, because you're just so used to seeing Bruce Wayne or this white guy do it. It's ridiculous that this black guy does it in your mind because you don't recognize his humanity in the same way you recognize a white character. And unfortunately, I think in some ways, not always, but in some ways, it's slow to change. And I think the reason it's slow to change is because it's a lot of people don't want to recognize that about themselves. I mean, we're so busy saying we're not racist. I'm not a racist. I'm not whatever. That they don't want to recognize that aspect of their personality. My wife, for example, I have a white wife. My wife is German. Okay, I'm obviously not. When my wife and I got together, I remember saying to her that, listen, you are watching the movie. I am the movie. If at any point in time you think you want to step back out of this relationship, let me know, because you're going to discover some things about people that you've known your entire life that you didn't know before. They're going to have a reaction. And sure enough, that happened. And it's not because people are walking around, carrying their KKK cards. It's just that people don't realize until something is stirred up. They don't realize that they have these ideas and prejudices. I am no different. I mean, depending upon the type of day I've had, if you catch certain things coming out of my mouth, you'd swear, hey, man, he hates all white people. No, I don't, but I'm pissed off right now. I can remember I had a hard day at work and once, and it was specifically something dealing with some racial nonsense. And I came home, and my wife was trying to talk to me, and I had the Blu-ray Django with Jamie Foxx on, and I said, please, I don't want to talk about anything. I just want to watch Jamie Foxx kill white people right now. Now, if that doesn't, if you take that out of context, say Craig hates white people. No, Craig doesn't hate white people. Craig doesn't hate anybody. I'm just pissed off right now. So, I mean, I understand that people are like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did I answer your question too much?
That's fine. But now, I'm sorry. What was the name of that DC imprint you mentioned that was doing multicultural comics?
Oh, it was Milestone Media.
Milestone.
Yeah, they had characters like Icon, Static, Hardware, Rocket, the Blood Syndicate. They were the people who handle those characters, and those characters are still, as far as I know, back in 2015, Reggie Hudlin announced that Milestone Media was coming back. That was 2015. So from what I'm
still waiting.
We're still waiting, yeah. But listen, here's the thing. They may just be coming back, and I hope they do, but I think that they're tied up in some sort of contractual web or limbo with DC Comics because we own part of this character, you own that much, and this group owns a certain percentage of whatever it is. And they're probably trying to work through those legal mire that they may be caught up in, which is sad because I'm a big believer in ownership. I think it's always best if you own your own property, and by ownership I mean I'm talking to you right now on this computer. If I get through with this interview and I decide I don't want this computer anymore and I'm going to throw it out the window, no one can say anything to me because I own it. If I have to argue and haggle with somebody else about what I do with it, I don't own it. So for me, it's a very simple thing. I think more black people need to invest in their own property. They need to invest in their own idea and really seek to own and really seek to create something that allows you to perhaps employ other black people. I very strongly believe in that.
Now, so for it to have an imprint that's specifically doing kind of multicultural comics, I mean, I can see good and bad side of that. I mean, I just like to read good comics. I don't really care if they're multicultural or whatever. And I mean, do we need to have a special kind of lane for those to come down, a special imprint for that, or it'd be nice if they were just some of the regular DC or Marvel books that happen to be multicultural. I don't know what's your feeling on that.
Well, that goes back to what I was talking about when I said that white is the default position. Like, for example, what you just asked me sounds an awful lot like let's say I went out and I bought a black magazine like Ebony magazine or Essence magazine. I don't know if they even have those over in Japan, but those are black magazines, right? And I'm talking to a white friend of mine. What are you doing? I'm reading Essence magazine. Well, I don't know why you have to have an Essence magazine. A black magazine. They don't have a white magazine. Well, white is the default position, so you don't have to state.
Yeah, Time and Newsweek are the white magazine.
You don't have to state that this is the white magazine. You in America, white is the dominant culture. So the dominant culture prevails. We don't have to state this is for the dominant culture. But if you could pick up some magazine I was reading an article once in a magazine, and the guy who's writing it was a sports article, and he said, yes, on the weekends most of my friends are out playing golf and da 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 da. Well, when he described the activities of most of his friends, even though he didn't say these are white men he's talking about, I could clearly tell from the activities, most of my friends out on their boats or playing golf. Well, you're not talking about the people that I know. You're not talking about the neighborhoods I come from. So who are you talking about? It just goes right over his head that he's only talking about these people here. We have a whole secret subtext language for black people. The urban youth and the whatever. You're talking about a specific group of people. I mean, and you say you just want to read good comics, and that's fine. But the problem sometimes is with that, not with what you said. The problem is that there are a lot of white folks who will say, I don't want to go read that book. That's some black thing. There's folks in it, because they feel shut out. The blackness is shutting them out, and it might be the same thing with some other ethnic groups, but it's the blackness shuts them out, and it keeps them from relating to the human aspect of the character. So and I think that we can get over that, we can get beyond that, but we can't get over anything that we refuse to recognize as being a part of who we are and a part of how we think. And right now, I don't know how it is in Japan, but America is kind of reacting now to the political correctness that has existed here for some time, that Donald Trump is living proof of that. But unless you acknowledge that you have an issue about something, you'll never get beyond it. So that's that.
Coming up, black characters in Marvel books, Craig's motivation to keep going on the film, and more. But first, if you value the content on Deconstructing Comics, Critiquing Comics, and To the Bat Polls and want to help us move up to bigger and better things, how about donating a few bucks a month via Patreon at patreon.com/deconcomics. Check out all our goals and rewards there and make your pledge. Or you can make a one-time donation via PayPal. Send it to donate@deconstructingcomics.com.
Hi, my name is Billy Hogan, host of the Superman Fan Podcast, which explores the world of Superman and the many creators who have added to his legacy over the decades. Episodes will feature creator biographies or highlight some of their top stories they have created as well as their top characters. Other episodes will feature topics appropriate to the holiday or the time of the year. For instance, Valentine's Day will feature stories about the women in Superman's life. April Fool's Day will feature some of the bizarre Superman Silver Age stories, or some of the imaginary stories that have been published. Halloween will feature some of the scary Superman stories, or some of his strange transformations, and of course, some of the Christmas Superman stories. The website can be found at supermanfanpodcast.mypodcast.com. The blog is supermanfanpodcast.blogspot.com, and you can send email to supermanfanpodcast@gmail.com. I also have a spoiler-free comic book review blog of the titles I read every week, which can be found at mypulllist.blogspot.com, and you can send email about this blog to mypulllist@gmail.com.
So does your film deal much with, like, is it mostly based on what's going on in the present, or is there very much about the past history of, like, African Americans in comics?
No, I don't deal with the past history of African Americans in comics unless it comes out in the conversation. Like if I'm talking to an older fellow, like let's say I'm talking to Tim Fielder, I have an interview with coming up with Alex Simmons, who does this book called Blackjack. These are older gentlemen, so you're talking with them about their experiences in comics. You're going to get a lot of what happened in history. You're going to get the history. But if you're talking to somebody like another guy I've got an interview with coming up, his name is Anthony Piper. He does this book called Trill League, and it's like a satirical look at the characters, like at superheroes, mostly the Justice League and that sort of thing. He's a young guy, so I don't expect to talk with him and have him go into the, 40 years ago we were dealing with this and da 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 da. He might know it, but I doubt if he'd know it from an experiential standpoint. So it's not a historical documentary. It's just these are the individuals who are here and that are doing this work. And I think that they need to be highlighted because I very strongly believe that image is important. What people see is what they gravitate towards. And I think we need positive images. And so I wanted to highlight what's going on with Black people in comics. There's a video that I saw, and this also goes back to the point I was making before about what, something being the default position and where that comes from. It's on YouTube. There's an image of there's this father, and he's got his son, and his son's like a toddler. Kid can't even talk. And they're watching a scene from the movie Man of Steel where Superman's learning to fly. And the boy is just getting more and more excited as Superman's learning to fly. And by the end, he takes off, and the boy is just screaming. He's really excited. And I'm watching this, and I was thinking to myself, wow, by the time that child is, let's say, 18 years old, he will have been bombarded with images and with the idea that people who look like him can accomplish anything. And then I started thinking, what are the images that young Black people are seeing? What do they see? Image is very important. If you project an image on the wall to somebody long enough, and this is what they see, that is what they will gravitate towards. I mean, that's what rap's about. I mean, you got a lot of Black guys. I don't know what they're doing in Japan, but you had a lot of Black guys that are still walking around with their pants hanging down, sagging, they call it. They got that from the rappers, who got that from prison culture. So what they saw was what they ultimately mimicked. In the opposite end, you got a young white kid. What is he looking at? I mean, he may be looking at some of the same images that Black people are, but he has a broader palette that he can draw from in terms of imagery. So one of the things that I want to do with this film is expose and shine a light on the positive contributions that Blacks are making in the comic industry. And once we're done with this, Lord willing, I plan on doing other films that do similar things, but not in comics, but in other ways.
I see. Yeah, we're talking about the images that people see. I mean, in terms of African American characters, the big two notoriously for many years had, just a few Black superheroes, and most of them had Black in their names, and were maybe like just a copy of a better known white hero. Yes. What do you feel about the situation now in terms of characters in the big two companies?
Well, I think that right now, the big two, if you're talking about Marvel and DC, right now, what do you call it? Multiculturalism, diversity. That's the buzzword. So what a lot of people are doing, and it's in some ways it's okay, in other ways it kind of annoys me, is you're taking white characters and you're coming up with the black version of the same character. I think it would be better if more blacks created their own characters as opposed to basically brownwashing already white characters. There are characters, and that's not to say I don't enjoy some of these characters. Like I love Black Panther. I love the fact that they're working on a Black Panther movie right now. I'm really looking forward to it. But I don't necessarily need to see Black Kid Flash. I don't necessarily need to see a black version of everything that's white. Create your own characters, get them out there, and invest your time and energy in making them great. That's preferable to me. But right now, the companies, the big two in particular, they're trying to cash in on the diversity thing. So and the same thing goes for, let's say, homosexuality. They started turning already established heterosexual characters gay. I don't have a problem with you having gay characters, but don't take a character that I've been reading all my life and he's clearly heterosexual and now he's gay. He just figured it out.
Yeah, I think Iceman?
Yeah, Iceman. That's exactly right. Iceman is gay. Well, when did that happen? I don't need to see that. It doesn't disturb me. A gay character does not disturb me, but it's kind of a smack in the face because you're clearly pandering to a group of people, and by group of people I mean your audience in general. You're just clearly pandering, and that's sad. I don't want pandering. If you got a character, the character's gay, character's bisexual, I don't care what the character is, that's fine, but don't take somebody like Batman is suddenly gay. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's annoying.
Well, now Marvel's created kind of a weird situation where there's like a black Captain America and a white Captain America and a black Spider-Man and a white Spider-Man and a female Thor and a male Thor. Like,
yeah, they did that. They're cashing in on. They're trying to cash in on the diversity thing, and that plus, I think a lot of artists and people who come and writers who come to these companies, they realize that if they create a character that's new, they don't own it because it's work for hire for Marvel or DC, whoever it is. So they're kind of reluctant to take on the responsibility of creating something new. They can do it. I'm sure Marvel wouldn't say, no, don't create anything new because we'll own it and we don't really want to do that. But they're reluctant, the creators are reluctant to create something that they know ultimately they're not going to own. So what they wind up, I think, falling back on is let's take a character that we already have and we'll make him this. And, girls need heroes too. So let's turn Jane Foster into Thor. And I don't care for that. For me, Thor is Thor. And I'm not saying the Jane Foster Thor isn't a good book. The story's not well written. But for me, Thor is Thor. He's a guy. I don't need to see, Thor as a woman. I felt the same way when I saw the movie Thor. And I mean, there are a lot of people who got up in arms positively and negatively about it, but I didn't care for Heimdall being made black. Idris Elba played Heimdall. Now, if you know it, I was like, if you know anything about mythology, Heimdall was like one of the whitest of the gods. So you take Heimdall and you make him
from
a black.
Norway.
Yeah, it's like red hair from what I understand. I don't need to see Heimdall as a black guy. I would have much rather if you taken some black mythology and did work on that and presented that in the film, that would have been fine for me. But I remember watching the movie, and every time Heimdall showed up, I was like, oh, Hi, oh, you know, it kind of bothered me.
I suppose they're thinking, the names of the characters are kind of like brands. They're established, well-known brands, and so it's easier to get people's attention with that name rather than coming up with something new.
Yeah, yeah. But they're trying to, like I said, they're pandering. They're trying to get those dollars. Unfortunately, Hollywood has a tendency to they either whitewash everything, and by whitewashing everything, I'm thinking The Last Samurai. Tom Cruise was the last samurai, and now they've got this new movie with the guy who plays Jason Bourne. What's his name? Matt Damon is going to play in this movie called The Wall, about the Great Wall of China. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and now they're doing Ghost in the Shell, and they've got Scarlett Johansson playing the major. And I don't need to see that, The Ghost in the Shell character is clearly Japanese. There are a whole lot of talented Japanese actors and actresses out there. Let's keep it the way it is. Let's do it the way it is. I don't want to see Matt Damon playing some Chinese warrior, not a warrior in China who, by the end of the film, will probably save the day. I didn't need to see Tom Cruise as the last samurai. That's kind of insulting. I don't care for that. Keep the character as the character is. And I think true diversity is when you're comfortable enough to keep the characters as they are, or have the characters portrayed in a way that would be true to that area, and people get a chance to internalize and accept that reality, as opposed to, every time you turn around, there's the white guy comes in and saves the day. You go see these movies, and there's always some if it's a black movie, there's always some white guy in there who represents the sympathetic, empathetic white guy who every white person in the audience can relate to. Yeah, that would be me. And they put that character in there on purpose. It would be nice if you didn't have that character all the time. But in order to address these things, we have to first admit that this is the way we look at things, and we're not as comfortable with racial things as we like to talk the talk. We don't walk the walk like we talk it. I mean, everyone when President Obama was in office, everyone's talking about we're in a post-racial America. Now look at post-racial America. I don't. Yeah. What's your take over there on Trump? What do they say anything about him? Were you following what's going on over here?
Oh yeah, I'm following it. The internet, I can keep up with everything pretty easily. But yeah, I mean, the Japanese media hates him. I had a Japanese person say to me, like, sometime before the election, like, I heard that there are some Americans who actually support him.
Yes, yeah.
They just like couldn't quite grasp how he could be supported by anyone.
Yeah. No, people don't want to accept certain things about themselves. There's this sense of entitlement that not everybody, but there are a lot of white folks that have a sense of entitlement. And that they don't, for whatever reason, they don't see it about themselves, and that creates problems. I like Donald Trump's. There's this big thing. There was this thing about jobs. I'm bringing back jobs, and I'm doing this. And they show all these towns where the people were coal miners, and the coal miners are out of work, and this town used to be thriving, and now it's not. Well, if that town were full of black folks, someone would have walked in there and said, listen, all you black people, get with the modern program. No one's running around looking to get into a coal mine. Get a computer and learn a skill that applies to today. But the reason no one's saying that with any gusto is because they're all white folks. So there's a feeling that things should be better, We, even though we've moved past the industrial age, here we should still have the industrial age. Let's no one's saying the things that need to be said. So, what are you going to do? It's a problem. I always say, if you're a white guy in America and you got a halfway decent brain and you're not like two heads. You're Mickey Mouse in America's Disney World. And if Mickey can't find a job in Disney World, it's not my problem. It's not my fault. You know, I'm Boo Boo from Hanna-Barbera. I shouldn't even be in this cartoon.
Wrong company.
Yeah.
On our Facebook group, I mentioned I was going to be interviewing you. I did get one question from a listener named Eddie Delaney. In terms of the film, he said, what advice were you given early on by other creators of color that helped you keep going?
That helped me keep going? Oh, wow. I don't know if I was given any advice by creators that helped me keep going. It was the reaction that I got from people more than anything else. It was reactions like, "Oh my God, it's about time. We've been waiting for this." It was those sorts of reactions that I got that, if anything, kept me going. A lot of the writers and artists and people that I've spoken with so far, I mean, they've been really kind and really nice. But I don't remember anyone giving me any advice to keep going. You know, come to think of it, no, let me take that back. Tim Fielder has been like, he's awesome. You know, Tim Fielder and another fellow, John Jennings. John Jennings is a professor of cultural studies, and John, he's is Harvard right now. And Tim Fielder and John Jennings have been like really great guys. Tim is responsible for me getting some interviews with people that I never thought would sit down and talk with me. There's a fellow named Sebastian Jones. He's in California. He's the head of Stranger Comics. He does this book. One of the books that he does is Niobe, She Is Life. I believe that's how the complete title. And he does that book with Amanda Stenberg. And he's granted me an interview. I'm going to be getting out to California at some point to talk with him. And I connected with him through Tim Fielder. I mean, things like that help you keep going. When you have people who are really like, oh, you need to talk to this person. That's fantastic. And John Jennings, man, he's like, he's a living library of history. You mention a character, he'll give you a complete breakdown of the character, the history of the character that's known, the part of the history of the character that's not known, the racism that's tagged into the creation of that particular character, if there is any. John Jennings is just, he's like my hero, you know. He's awesome. And you know, so those sorts of things have kept me going throughout this whole process. It's what keeps you going is when you feel like you're doing something and people are hungry for it. And another thing that keeps me going doesn't necessarily come from people. It comes from, I guess, me. I have my children who are watching me. My son's the videographer. My daughter is one of the financial contributors, and she does a lot to help me out. Both my daughters do. I want them to see me working to build something that is for them. I believe that they can work for anybody they want to, but I think it's important for young Black people to have the option of saying, I don't want to work there, I want to work for myself. And I want my children to see me doing something that will point me in that direction towards being self-employed. I'm not there yet. I've got to get up in the morning and go to work, but I want my children to see that Dad always strives to build something for himself. I think that's very important. So those are the things that keep me going.
I see. Yeah, great. So once this is finished, how is it going to be released? What's the plan for that?
Well, here's the thing. So far, my first idea, like I said, my first idea when I first started, I wasn't expecting to get the response that I got. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put it up on Vimeo, charge a certain amount of money for it, and that's what I'm going to do. And so far, that idea is still floating around my head. So right now, as it stands, I'm looking to go to Vimeo. The Vimeo is all over the world. It's not like YouTube. You got to pay to get into it, and you've got to get, you've got to pay to see the film. So that's what I'm thinking. But as I've gone along, quite a few people have told me about other avenues. I mean, Sean Martinsborough talked to me about what's the film festival? I can't remember the popular film festival that they have. And there's a film festival he's mentioned to me. I can't even think of it right now. I'm going blank because I'm tired. And there are quite a few other avenues that have been presented to me, including the Board of Education, the library. So I'm going to be looking into some other avenues of distribution. But right now, as it stands, if you ask me who's going to put this out, I say Vimeo, as it stands right now.
I see. Okay. Now, you mentioned that you make comics yourself. I don't know, have you had time to do much in terms of comics while you've been making this?
Well, I have a project called Dreamcraft, and if you go to my Facebook page, yes, I'm on Facebook, and there's not a whole lot of Craig Rippons on Facebook, but if you go to Facebook and you find me there, Craig Rippon, CraigRip, P as in Peter, P as in Peter, O-N as in Nancy, look me up. And you go to my photo section, you'll see samples of the pages that I've worked on. And I have a Dreamcraft page, which is the title of the graphic novel that I'm working on. But since I started this project, it's consumed most of my time. Like I said, I went to Boston the other night, and I still haven't gotten any sleep yet. And I've got 2 paintings on my easel that I want to finish. I planned on finishing them by now. I haven't gotten a chance to do that. So this is kind of all consuming right now. I don't see myself slowing down until over the weekend, because I've gotten a show that I'm going to be doing in Brooklyn called Pete's Basement. So I'll be on Pete's Basement, filming Pete's Basement on this coming Friday. So that's how things are going for me. But I plan on picking that comic up again. I'm not going to leave that too long.
I see. Okay. Is there a website for the film project at this
Not
point?
Yet.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to put up the Kickstarter. My daughter's going to create a website. And at that point, we'll be able to advertise that way. By the time you get your interview up here, the website will probably be up. Most definitely, the Kickstarter will be running.
Okay, yeah, I'll get the link for that from you and put it in the show notes.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure.
So that's where we are. That's how things are going. I'm just trying to trudge along here and make this whole thing happen. It's a lot of work. I got to tell you, it really is a lot of work, but it's enjoyable. I enjoy working at it and making it happen. So that's good.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, looking at the trailer, it looks like it's going to be a good film. So,
thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing it. And thanks a lot for being on.
I appreciate it.
I now have the link to the Kickstarter for Black Ink, and it's in the show notes. Take a look at the Kickstarter page to see the trailer. You can write us at mail@deconstructingcomics.com, or look up Deconstructing Comics on Patreon, Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, and YouTube. All our social media links can be found on the right sidebar at deconstructingcomics.com. Also, please give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Our theme is from bensound.com. If you're looking for some constructive feedback on your comic, send it to us and Mulele and I will critique it on our spin-off podcast, Critiquing Comics. Send it to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and please try to keep it to about 30 pages. Last Thursday, we revisited a comic we discussed 3 years ago and eulogized a great guy we never met, but whose comic we once critiqued, Nick Dupree. This Thursday on To the Bat Poles, Paul and I take a look at the big new book of photos and info on the making of Batman 66. Is Batman a celebration of the classic TV series, suitable for your Bat coffee table? Look up To the Bat Poles wherever you find your podcasts, or at tothebatpoles.libsyn.com. Then next Monday, an interview with Joey Allison Sayers, who's done cartoons for Mad Magazine, The Nib, Go Comics, and more. Plus, she made 2 books of comics about her coming out as transgender. I'll be talking with her about all that, so be here next week. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.